A big hello to all my wonderful KCET aspirants. I hope you're doing really great, my dear children. I welcome you all to Masterstroke series, where today we are going to complete evolution chapter in one stroke. So yes, this chapter, when I saw it for the first time, I felt it's so boring. How will I teach it? But then when I went ahead explaining this chapter to other children and all, I got to know that it's not that boring. It's actually interesting, and you know what? You become curious also. Oh, this is how it happened. How it goes on like that. So obviously, when I'm going to make this particular video, I'll make sure that it's not going way too long. Okay, so it might be around, my dear children, not 2 hours, never 2 hours, because we know how important your time is. So it could be 1 hour or 1.5 hours. Okay, I'll try to make it, let's say, within 1.5 hours, because I have to include all the important points, right? So yes, so that has to be there. And what do I need from you? I need your NCERT and a pen from you, because why? Whenever I teach, you get to understand where am I teaching from, otherwise you will be lost. So my dear children, what is our aim? To not get distracted and just listen to what I'm teaching you over here. So let's get started. I hope we can. So first thing, oh my god, yeah, the first thing that we have is, how did Earth come? Evolution of Earth. So according to someone, okay, according to lots of researches being done, it was said that there is a big bang that happened. Okay, there was a big bang that happened, and small units of things were being formed over there. Now when the bang happened, obviously the temperature could have gone really high. So temperature was way too much. And what about the condition over there? Was there oxygen or not? No, there was no oxygen. So temperature was high and there was no oxygen. So I'll say basically this condition is temperature is high and it's a reducing condition that was there. There was no presence of oxygen, my dear children. Now slowly after the bang got over, what happened? The temperature, it came down a bit. The temperature, it came down, but what about the reducing condition which was there? It was still like that. There was no oxygen at that point of time. So because of this big bang that happened, my dear children, there were small units being formed. And let's assume that this particular thing that we are talking about is our Earth. So Earth, did it have any atmosphere back then? Did it have any layers of atmosphere back then? Nothing. It was just a molten mass. It was just what? Molten mass. So let's zoom this particular guy in and talk about it. That will be more easy for us to understand. So please be in my loop. Please try to understand what I am trying to tell. First, a bang happened. At this point of time, temperature was really high and the atmosphere was reducing. We cannot call it atmosphere. Basically, the condition which was there, it was reducing. There was no oxygen present. Then the temperature slowly came down, but not too down. Okay. Now over here, the reducing condition was still there. And if we talk about Earth, so it does not have the atmosphere and all, and it was just a molten mass, my dear children. It was just a molten mass. Here I want to remind you something, that apart from this, there was presence of helium and hydrogen after the bang. After the bang, there was presence of helium and hydrogen. And what happened? The gravitational force and everything was applied, and slowly all the gases which were there, they kind of settled. They kind of settled around all the small units. So the gases were there settling around over here, and it became a molten mass after the bang. Okay, because the gases and everything was there, temperature was quite high and it was reducing and everything was there. Now what happened, my dear children? From this molten mass of things, certain gases came around. For example, methane. For example, CO2 as well as ammonia. So methane is CH4, ammonia is NH3, CO2 is there. Okay, and then there was something else also, which is what? Water vapor. Water vapor, that is H2O. Now, just like Earth, obviously sun also is there. There is sun as well, my dear children. And when the UV rays of sun, it fell on the water vapor, water got split into what? Hydrogen and basically oxygen. Okay, so similarly, suppose another H2 and O broke down. This O came together. What do you got? You got O2. That is how oxygen came. So early Earth did not have any atmosphere, and there were just gases like water vapor, methane, CO2, ammonia and all. Now what happened? Basically the O2 which is there over here, the oxygen which is there over here, it is the one that might go ahead and combine with lot of other things over here and give rise to what? Organic compounds like amino acids and stuff. And what about one more thing happened with the oxygen, that is this oxygen molecule might have came together with O from H2O. O2 plus O gives you what? O3. So O3 is nothing but ozone. Now ozone might have been formed around what? The surface of the earth, which is there, my dear children. That is how slowly every progress happened. Okay, that is how slowly all the progress has happened, my dear children. Okay, so UV rays, okay, now we will read it, and while we read it, it becomes all the more clear. So universe is 20 billion years old, like within the galaxy, stars and everything. Okay, now universe expanded, cooled and formed what? Hydrogen, helium, leading to what? Galaxies. That is how all the, I told you, right, all the gases came in and settled in. That's how you got the earth, this and that and everything, all the galaxies. Now earth formed around 4.5 billion ago in the Milky Way galaxy. Big Bang theory explained the universe's origin through massive explosion. Okay, that's the first thing. Now early earth, which was formed by children, didn't have any atmosphere but had gases like water vapor, methane, CO2 and ammonia, which were released from the molten mass. Okay, now the UV rays, it split the water, leading to oxygen formation and ozone layer also. Oxygen formation was there, it came combined with O and gave the ozone layer. This oxygen itself went and combined with a lot of other things to give rise to organic matter like amino acids and nucleic acids and things like that. Probably now they might have come together to give certain, let's say, life, or basically organisms. Not exactly organisms, it was just group of, let's say, all these macromolecules, my dear children, which was formed earlier. So now, yeah, and one more thing happened. Oceans formed from the rainfall as the earth cooled. So when the temperature it came down, okay, later on when the temperature came down, my dear children, what happened is that when slowly when earth was cooling, the water which was there, it condensed down and filled all the pores which are there. All the pores which were there, it filled there, and that is how you got oceans. Okay, so life appeared 4 billion years ago, 50 million years after the earth formation. So 4.5 million years ago earth formed, and after that 4 billion years ago, that means almost there was a gap of 500 million years, okay, where the life appeared. And this life is not, that does not mean any organism or things like that. No, just the organic matter which was being formed, as I said, amino acid or nucleic acid. This was what is referred to as life over here. Okay, so that is the Big Bang theory. Now the next theory, you have so many hypotheses. So there is panspermia hypothesis. This is by Greek thinkers, my dear children. They thought that basically life came on earth from the pores. Not from the pores, from the spores. Okay, from the spores. You know, spores are something that can survive unfavorable condition, and whenever they get the favorable condition, they basically grow over there. So probably there were spores from other planet that came to our planet, and that's how life came. That was panspermia hypothesis. Okay, that is one hypothesis. And after that came spontaneous generation. That is even more funnier. What happened over here in spontaneous generation is that, for example, you have certain leaves and everything being stored somewhere. Okay, and slowly, and you also have rice and everything, small seeds or some stuff like that being stored over here, and you're closing it, not opening it at all. Okay, then one day what you find is that there are small cute little mice that are coming outside, and when people saw it, they thought that, oh, from the decaying things or from the stored things which are there, basically life is originating. That is how mice and all is coming. Okay, and we should not be blaming them. They did not have an option to think otherwise, okay, because that is how it was back then. So spontaneous generation thought that life from rotting matter was, life came from what? Rotting matter and decaying matter which was stored over there. Okay, but then this was disapproved by Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur came in to the picture and he said, no, this particular thing is not at all true. Spontaneous generation is not true. Basically, I can give you an experiment to prove it wrong. What was that experiment? Basically, what he did was, he had a flask. In the flask, he had some broth. Okay. Now, over here, this flask shape was very unique. It had a swan neck. So basically what happened was, he sterilized the whole flask and put the broth and for preparation and things like that. He found that there were no organisms over here. He found that there were no living organisms found to be over here after some time. But then he kept the same flask, but without this one neck. He kept this as open thing. Now what is happening? Basically, he found that there were certain organisms up over here. So he came up with this thing. He said that life basically came from pre-existing things. So there might have been something in the atmosphere, and when they came over here, Okay, when they came over here, they gave rise to something else as well. So life came from the pre-existing things, my dear children. That is what Louis Pasteur said. It is not like spontaneously things have been generating over there, and it is not found over here because probably organisms which were getting entered over here, they might have got stuck, which is why they are not moving ahead. But in this condition, in the same sterilized condition, when it was kept open over here, things were being formed. Okay, so this was Louis Pasteur's thing. He said that life arises from the pre-existing life, but he was not able to explain where this pre-existing life come from. He was not able to explain that, which is why again this was of no use. This was of no use, my dear children. So this is about evolution of Earth, which is there. Now something logical came in from Oparin and Haldane. Okay, from Oparin and Haldane, they said that basically all the things that we are seeing over here arose from non-living organic molecules. Okay, arose from non-living organic molecules. What do I mean by that? Basically RNA, proteins, they are all organic molecules which are there. Okay, so basically, how did organic molecules come from? They might have come from inorganic compounds. You didn't understand? So I told you in the initial part that in the Big Bang theory and all, when I was explaining that thing, I explained that there were certain gases released from the molten mass of the Earth, right? Those were methane, those were ammonia, CO2 and water vapor and everything. Probably these gases which are there might have combined, okay, under reducing atmosphere, that is where there is no oxygen, and also at high temperature they might have combined to give what? To produce organic compounds. So all these things that is there, they are inorganic things, and under high temperature and reducing atmosphere, can't they give rise to organic compounds? Yes, they can give rise to organic compounds. And now these organic compounds which are there, can't they come together to form a living thing? Yes, it can happen. So the RNA and the protein and everything can combine together to give rise to any living organism which is there. And probably they might not be very much complex. They might be simple organisms which are there, but life might have arose like that. So this was said by Oparin and Haldane. So life originated from non-living organic molecules. Okay, let's say as proteins and RNA and everything. And how did RNA and everything came from? Basically chemical evolution. They said that organic molecules were formed from inorganic compounds which were there in early Earth. So early Earth had high temperature, volcanic storms and also reducing atmosphere with these gases, that is ammonia, methane, CO2 as well as water vapor and everything was there. Okay, just like that how I showed you, the conditions were all similar over here. And to prove this, S.L. Miller came in. Okay, S.L. Miller, there was a scientist who came in and said that I can prove this to you. What Oparin and Haldane were trying to say, I can prove this to you. What did he do is, he created a condition like this, where over here this is a closed setup, my dear children. This is a closed setup, that means there is no oxygen. That means reducing atmosphere is for sure there. Now this is boiling water, that means from here you get water vapor. Now 2 electrodes are being kept over here, so that increase of temperature is being maintained. So 800 degrees Celsius was being maintained over here, my dear children. 800 degrees Celsius was being maintained, which is a quite high temperature, and just like how you had in the primitive Earth. Now all these gases were also put over here, that is methane, ammonia, H2O and H2. Okay, so all these gases were there. Now obviously, as I said, the water vapor might be breaking down under high temperature, or basically because of the suns and things like that. So when it breaks down, the oxygen is going to form. The oxygen which is there, my dear children, might combine with all of this thing for giving rise to what? Organic compounds. And was he able to see organic compounds being formed up over here? Yes. Over here, the liquid water which was trapped in this, he found amino acids. An amino acid is what? An organic compound which is there. Now the amino acids can come together to form what? Proteins. You get it? Similarly, nucleic. So he found out amino acids. There were other scientists who came in and they found out some other organic molecules as well. And probably all these organic molecules which are there might have come together to give rise to life, my dear children. Okay, so this is the thing. So Miller's experiment in 1953, he simulated early Earth condition in a closed flask, electric discharge in ammonia, hydrogen, methane, hydrogen, ammonia and H2O vapor, that is water vapor, at 800 degrees Celsius. Amino acids were formed, and amino acids basically were what? The small units of proteins. amino acids, when they come together, that's how proteins are being formed. Further experiments were also done. Other scientists produced sugars, nitrogen-based pigments and fats with the same thing. And when meteorites are still being analyzed, my dear children, it is found that similar compounds are being formed over there. So probably this is how life might have taken its form. You get it? So this is chemical evolution, which was most approved thing which is there. I hope you got it. Now, there are certain evidences of evolution that you should definitely know. So, we learned about theory of evolution and things like that. Now, there are evidences of evolution that probably evolution might have happened. Okay, evolution is still happening. There is a proof for that. First is paleontological evidence. In paleontological evidence, we are going to talk about fossils, my dear children. Fossils are going to play a major role over here. So, you know, the remains of the dead parts of the organisms are known as fossils. Suppose I am over here and I am digging deep. Okay, when I dig deep, what will happen, my dear children? I am going to see so many layers. Okay, so many layers of my earth that is being there, right? Now, in each layer, if I am able to see some, bones, skeletons and stuff like that, I would understand that probably when this layer was formed, during this particular time, this organism might be very much dominant. This might have survived. And when we go up the layers, we get to know, oh, now the skeletons are changing. Probably other organisms were there. Now, if we dig down, basically you will find human skeleton because we are the organisms which are still persisting. You get it? So, fossils are going to play a major role up over here, which shows an evidence for what evolution. So, rock sediments, it forms layers over time, preserving what? The fossils, the rock sediments which are there, it is going to form so many layers. Now, age determination, different age rock layers contains fossil from different period, just like how I told you. Now, some fossils resemble modern species while others such as dinosaurs are extinct. You found dinosaur fossil also, that means, and it is not found now, that means they are what? Extinct, and we might have probably evolved from all these things which are up there. Now, fossils helps determine the time period in which the organisms live, same thing, okay? And fossils records show that changes in life forms over time, and this shows that yes, evolution definitely happened, my dear children. So one evidence for evolution is paleontological evidence, which is one of the trusted evidence for what? Evolution. Now going ahead, we have the second thing, that is embryological support for evolution. What do you mean by embryological support? So if you know, when we are inside our mother's womb, at that point of time, we have gill slits. We have what? Gill slits. Just like fishes, we have tail also. So probably what does this mean? Probably we might have evolved from fishes and everything, which is why in the embryonic stage we have their features. But when we get into an adult form, that is when the fetus is fully formed, at this point of time we do not have tail, we do not have gill slits because it is being covered. But it showed. Right, it showed in the embryonic stage. Probably that means that we might have evolved from fishes and everything which is up there. So from fishes, it is believed that from fishes you got amphibians, okay, from amphibians you got reptiles, and from reptiles you got both aves, that is birds, and us, that is mammals, my dear children. So who said this? It was proposed by Ernst Haeckel. So Ernst Haeckel observed common embryonic features in vertebrates, and it's not just us. Amphibians also have gill slits, and basically reptiles also have. Everyone has it. So he was like, probably in that way, if we see that we might have evolved from what? Fishes. So example, all vertebrate embryo develop vestigial gill slits, functional only in what? Fish. It is now also functional only in fish, but we see in everything. But then, okay, Haeckel's claim was embryos pass through adult stages of ancestral form. Okay, leave that thing. At least I hope you understood this thing. But then it was not completely approved. There was another person with the same name, that is Ernst, that is Carl Ernst Weinberg. He said that I disapprove this particular thing. Why? Because in that case, if we are human beings, we should have shown characteristics of amphibians and reptiles also. Why are not we showing the characteristics of them? If we have evolved from them, if fishes' characteristics can be there, don't you think this and this can also be there? But it's not there. So showed that embryos do not pass through adult stages of all the other animals, which is why I cannot completely believe that this type of evolution might have happened of fishes basically, or mammals basically came from fishes or not. So this was disapproved by Carl Ernst Weinberg, my dear children, but it was put down by Ernst Haeckel. I hope that's clear. Yeah. Now, another thing is comparative anatomy and morphology. This is also going to act like a evidence. How anatomy and morphology, what do you basically mean by that? So basically, you know homologous structure. Are you aware about homologous structure? If you know the cheetah's limb with which it runs, okay, and our forelimb with which we eat. So basically over here, we have the same type of bones just like cheetah. Just like cheetah. So that doesn't it suggest that we had common ancestry, my dear children? We had common ancestry, which is why they also have this thing. But then we basically were put into different situations, which is why we might have evolved differently. So homologous structures is a very important example of what, evidence of what evolution, my dear children. So what are homologous structures? Homologous structures are those which have same structure but different function, and because they have same structure, it shows that probably they might have what? Common ancestry as well. Such as forelimbs of whales, okay, which is used for swimming, bats, forelimbs of bats, which is used for flying, cheetahs, which is used for running, and humans, which is used for grasping. All of our forelimbs, my dear children, even whale, even bat, even cheetah, all of us basically have what? Same stuff of things, that is humerus, radius, ulna, metacarpus, carpals, phalanges, and everything. That is so crazy, right? So probably that means that we all might have evolved from a common ancestor, but since we are put into different situation, or the functions have become different. And also that's not all. So forelimbs of whale and everything is there. Apart from that, vertebrate hearts and brains also show structural similarities. Okay, vertebrate hearts and brain, vertebrate as in fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and everyone's, okay. If we talk about heart and brains, basically they have, I'm not saying it's totally similar, but they have some structural similarity, again showing that yes, evolution might have happened, okay, which is why we have grown differently, but we definitely had a common ancestor, my dear children. Now this type of evolution, okay, where basically you are having the similar structure, but you're using it comparatively for different things. You have different functions, okay, yeah, similar structure, but you have different functions. This type of evolution is known as divergent evolution. This is known as divergent. You're diverging. You're similar, but you were diverging to different direction. And the organs that we all have, they're known as homologous organs. They're known as homologous organs. Now this is in the case of animals, right? But what about plants? Plants also have something like this. So you know bougainvillea and you know cucurbita. In bougainvillea, my dear children, there are certain thorns, and in cucurbita you find there are some structures like this known as tendrils. You know what? Both of it basically arise from the same thing, that is what? Axillary bud. That is axillary bud. So again the structure, if you see, the origin which is there, it is the same, that is axillary bud, but they are evolving into different things. They have different functions up there. So this is also an example of what? Divergent evolution. So at the end they have different functions, but if we talk about the structural similarity, both of them have come from the axillary bud, which is why I'll call them homologous organs, and they might have common ancestry as well. So please remember these names. You might be given this question that you have to find whether are they homologous structures or are they some other structures which are being mentioned over here. So very important thing. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now this is an evidence. Now second thing is analogous organs. What do you mean by analogous organs? So analogous organs are the one that does not have structural similarity at all, but the function is same. For example, wings of butterflies and birds. So butterfly wing, you know, if you can tear it like this, okay, you should not be doing that, but yes, you can do. But if you talk about bird's wing, obviously it will have its own bones and stuff like that, feathers and everything, skin layer, right? It's totally different from what is there in the butterfly, but still both of it is used for what, my dear children? It's used for flying. So function is the same, but structurally they are different. If they are different structurally, that means they do not have common ancestor. Again, this is an example of evolution, that yes, evolution is happening, which is why we all are evolving, having the same functions over here. This is one thing. Now talk about eyes of octopus and mammals. Now octopus is something else, okay, it is not even coming under vertebrates, my dear, sorry, it's an invertebrate, but still, and we mammals are what? Vertebrates. We have the vertebral column and everything. They do not have everything, right? So over here, in the case of octopus and mammals, both of its eye is there for, have you seen anyone who says that my eye, with my eye I can smell things? No, with your eye you cannot smell things, you can only see things, right? So eye is there for viewing in both octopus and mammals, but Is it structurally same, my dear children? Not at all. It is not at all structurally same. Do they have the common ancestor if they are not structurally same? No, they do not have the common ancestor as well. Similarly, flippers of penguins and dolphins. So if you have seen penguin, my dear children, it will walk with that. Okay, but and the dolphin also basically swims with that. But flippers, when the penguin gets into the water, these same flippers are used for what? Swimming. So both adapted flippers of penguins and dolphins, my dear children, both of them are swimming with the same thing, but structurally they are totally different. Penguin is a bird and dolphin is what? A mammal. Again, something different. Okay, now sweet potato and potato is a plant's example, and this is a very important example. How is that an example? Basically, again, you have to make sure structurally it should not be same. Okay, so over here, sweet potato, when I talk about that, sorry, let's talk about potato first. So this is the stem of the potato. Suppose this is the ground layer. The stem enlarges like this. Stem enlarges like that. It has its own roots and stuff like that. But this portion over here, my dear children, swollen portion is the stem. It is a modified stem. What is this? This is potato. This is potato. If you talk about sweet potato, okay, if you talk about sweet potato, what is happening? Suppose this is a stem. This is the ground layer. If you talk about the roots are going to get enlarged like this to store certain things. And what do you call this now? You call this as sweet potato. So over here they are coming from the roots, and over here they are coming from the shoots which are there. So sweet potato is a root modification, potato is what? A stem modification. Both of them, they store food but originate from different plant parts. Okay, now, so those are analogous organs, and this type of evolution where basically different type of organisms are, because they are sharing a common habitat, that is air over here and things like that, which is why they are developing what? Same type of functions. So they have similar functions. Okay, they have similar functions. Over there they had different functions. Over here they have similar functions but different structures internally. So they are converging to a point, and this is convergent evolution. And the organs which are there, I call them analogous organs. Works for you? Okay, so this is also an evidence. So we have paleontological evidence, we have embryological evidence, and then we have comparative anatomy and morphology. If we talk about the anatomy of the organism and the morphology of the organism, that also shows that yes, evolution might have definitely happened. Please remember all these names of the examples, very important. Now, going ahead with the next thing, that is industrial melanism. Just give me a second, okay? Just give me a second. Yes. So industrial melanism, again, it's very much interesting. I'll tell you. So basically, just imagine two plants. This is a whole different topic. Okay. And this is also how you will see evolution has happened or not. So basically, over here, before industrialization, everything were formed, what happened? There was something which is known as lichen. There was something that is known as lichen. Lichen is a symbiotic association between algae and a fungus, and it will only form if pollution is not there. So it is a pollution indicator as well. So before industrialization, there was no much pollution, so which is why these lichens were spread all around the plants, and they were the white structures. Okay. They are white structures which are there. Now here you had two moths, the white winged moth, and then you had a dark winged moth as well, my dear children. You had dark winged moth and you had white winged. So dark winged I am going to show like this. So what was happening is that, how did they come? Initially we had white moth only. How did these guys came in? Because probably some changes might have happened. Some changes might have happened which you call as what? Mutations. Okay, mutations might have happened in them, which is how this guy also arose. So in pre-industrialization era, okay, what happened? The white ones were able to survive. The white ones were able to survive because they were able to camouflage. No one was able to spot them easily. But in this white background, my dear children, with the help of lichen, in the white background, if something dark comes and sits over here, don't you think it can be easily spotted? It can be easily spotted. Hence, what happened is that their number went shooting up and their number went what? Shooting less. Okay, it was so bad. Now, after industrialization happened, I told you lichen cannot grow where pollution is there. So pollution was way too much. The lichen could not grow. and now the lichen is not growing. At this point of time, you tell me, if there is no lichen, that means the plant's dark color is only there. At this dark background, a white one, if it comes and sits, don't you think the predator can easily spot this and eat it up? Yes, so predator were easily able to spot them up and eat them up as well. But what about the dark ones? If I make a black dot over here, if I make, why is it not working? If I make, just a second. Okay. How? Okay, anyways. So if I make a dot over here, will it be visible even though it's visible as of now? But I tried to make the black one black turned into white. I don't know how. So anyways, the white ones were visible, the black ones were not visible. So now what will happen? Okay, so now what will happen? Basically, the white ones, their level decreased, and the black ones, their level increased. So can I say the nature selected the dark ones later on? Yes. And what is this an example of? This is an example of natural selection. We are not the ones who selected. We didn't say that we want the black ones or white ones. Nature selected them, my dear children. You get it? It was because of our activities, and these type of activities are known as anthropogenic activities, which are going to cause harm to the nature. But anyways, the nature selected it. At the end, the black ones were surviving better rather than the white ones. And this is known as industrial melanism. This example is known as industrial melanism. So just let's read it once. So observation in England. So in 1850s, pre-industrialization era, more white-winged moth were there than the dark-winged moth. Okay, the dark-winged you call them melanized moth. Now 1920s, post-industrialization, more dark-winged moth were there due to industrial smoke darkening the tree trunks which were there. Okay, and the lichens could not survive. So moths with colors that blended into the background survived. So initially white ones survived. Okay, before industrialization, white lichens covered the trees, helping the white moths camouflage, and the dark moths were what? Eaten. After industrialization, soot darkened trees. Okay, there was soot as in the industrial pollutants which are there, that is known as soot. So darkened the whole tree, okay, helping dark moth camouflage. The white moths were eaten up. So rural areas there was no industrialization. Please, my dear children, remember that. Now what about lichen? Lichen is going to act like a pollution indicator. Lichens do not grow in the polluted areas. Very, very important point. So this is an example of industrial melanism. Melanism as in colors, okay. So there's a pigment in our body that is melanin, and that is responsible for our color. You get it? So industrial melanism, and this is an example of natural selection as well, where the nature is selecting other type of organism which is able to survive better. Okay, survival of the fittest, you know. Now anthropogenic activities leading to evolution. There are certain examples of anthropogenic activities, our activities, okay, that can also lead to what? Evolution. So anthropogenic, human caused activities create strong selection pressures on organisms, forcing them to adapt for survival. So because of us, the other organisms which are there, they are going to bring out certain very fast changes in their body which will allow them to survive. So in this way, when they are bringing out changes in their body, aren't they showing evolution? Aren't they evolving into something else? Yes, my dear children. So now this will result in what? Rapid evolution. You just still didn't get it. When I tell you the example, you will get it. So pesticides and herbicide resistance. You might have seen that initially we had some pesticide. Now we after putting pesticide, we got if you draw Lakshman Rekha also, nowadays the ant do not die. Why? Because they have evolved and they evolved in a way that they could survive better and reproduce better. So now they have evolved in a way that they are resistant to all these things up there, my dear children. So farmers use pesticides to kill pests and herbicides to control the weeds. Some insects and weeds naturally have mutations that make them what? Resistant. These resistant individuals survive and reproduce, passing on the resistant genes to the next group of organisms. So suppose I am an ant, you are an ant, and there are two other ants, okay. So me and you, my dear children, we had some mutation in our body, we changed and we were able to survive the Lakshman Rekha. Now what will happen? Basically the generation will continue, and we all will be what? We all will be not resistant to this particular thing. They are cool with Lakshman Rekha. We can easily, it's like a game for us to jump from here to there. You get it? So it's because of anthropogenic activities that this have come through. There is one more thing, antibiotic resistance in bacteria. So you might have seen that people nowadays take a lot of antibiotics. Why? Because even the small doses of antibiotics which were able to cure a lot of diseases then is not able to do that now. The bacteria also have evolved. You get it? So overuse and misuse of antibiotics in medicine and agriculture kill the most bacteria, but some mutant bacteria still survive. Okay, the one that has the mutations, it will still survive. These resistant bacteria multiply quickly, making infections hard to what? Treat, my dear children. Similarly, we also drug resistance in virus and eukaryotic pathogens, right? You know, if for HIV, why aren't we able to find a cure for it? Because the HIV virus is completely mutating every now and then. So how will we find a cure for it? So virus and parasite exposed to antiviral and antiparasitic drugs, my dear children, mutate and evolve what? Resistance. So this makes the diseases harder to treat over time. So drug resistant malaria, HIV mutations, exit, all of these things are there. So these are certain anthropogenic activities which are leading to what? Evolution. Okay, so initially we studied how did earth evolve, then we spoke about chemical evolution, all this thing, and then we came to what evidences of evolution, and then we spoke about industrial melanism, okay, how natural selection is basically happening and everything, how mutation is going to help. And then now we spoke about anthropogenic activities which is leading to what? Mutation. That means human activities that is leading to mutation. Now in your PU2 board examination there was a question, okay, that was asked, and this year I don't know. So basically it was asked that tell the anthropogenic activities that were leading to evolution. So you should be writing all these things. Okay. I mean the PU2 exam that is gonna come. I do not know when is this video going to be released, which is why even I am confused with that. But yes. Now adaptive radiations, my dear children. What is adaptive radiation? This is a whole new term which was there. Okay, everything is in support to evolution only. Please remember that. So adaptive radiation is basically was seen in finches, Darwin's finches, if you have heard of that. So Darwin was on a voyage, okay, he was on a voyage and he landed up in this particular island, that is Galapagos Island. Now in Galapagos Island he found that there were certain finches, a bird, okay, and when he moved towards this side, he found that same finches were there, but their beak was something else and they were eating something else. When he moved that side, there was again same type of finches with other beaks and they were also eating something else. So from that he got to understand one thing, that probably there must have been a common ancestor up over here, and from this common ancestor they might have certain mutations and all. Some of them might have went to other areas and they found that they were able to survive better with that particular mutation. Because of their beak change, they are able to eat the insects better. Because of some other changes in their beak, they are able to eat what? The grass better over there. So basically from one group of organism, other group of organism radiated to different areas and they kind of adapted to that area, and this is known as adaptive radiation, which was initially seen in Darwin's finches, my dear children. So observed at Galapagos Island by Darwin, he said that multiple finch species evolved from a common ancestor. So beak shapes adapted to different food sources, seed eating, insectivorous and vegetarian. So these three types of, firstly we just had the seed eating ones, but now we have insectivorous, the ones that feed on insects, the one that are vegetarians and all these things. So example of adaptive radiation, that is evolution of different species from a common ancestor in a specific geographical area. This is known as adaptive radiation. Now adaptive radiation was not only seen in the case of finches, it was seen in other organisms also. For example, Australian marsupials, my dear children. So they also show it. So over here in Australia, my dear children, they were marsupial ancestry. From this ancestor to different areas in the same geographical area, to different sites, different organisms were being formed. Tiger cat, Tasmanian wolf, sugar glider, marsupial mole, lot of things were being formed over here from the marsupials. From the marsupials that were there, or that is Australian marsupials. Okay, now again I am telling you, from a common ancestry, if they are moving ahead with different things, this is an example of divergent evolution. This is adaptive radiation which is happening over here. This is an example of divergent evolution. Now do you want to see convergent evolution also here? Well, I can show you that. What if in the same island, in the Australian island, other group of organisms were also living? For example, placental mammals. So Australian marsupial is an example. Placental mammals were also living over here. Now what happened? They also evolved like this. So with every Tasmanian wolf, you will be having what? A placental mammal also evolving like this. So they are coming from different ancestors, but now since they are living in a same habitat, they will be having certain same functions as well, and this is an example of convergent evolution. Please remember, to adaptive radiation, when it happens in one particular place, this becomes an example of convergent evolution, not divergent evolution. So first thing, we'll talk about just the marsupials. So Australian marsupials, the diverse marsupial species, evolved from a common ancestor. Each marsupial adapted to different ecological niches within the Australian island. Now, convergent evolution, when do you see that? When multiple adaptive radiations occur in the same geographical area, my dear children, in the same geographical area, when multiple adaptive radiations occur, it is known as what? Convergent evolution. Example, placental mammals in Australia evolved forms similar to what? Marsupials. So you had Australian marsupials and you had placental mammals. And example is also given. Tasmanian wolf is what? A marsupial. Okay. Placental wolf is what? The placental mammal. Both of them, they are wolf, they are basically having some similar functions. Okay. But they have evolved from different ancestors. They do not have common structure. So this is an example of convergent evolution. I hope you got it. Now this question can also be asked, that what are the examples of convergent evolution? What are the examples of adaptive radiation and things like that? So you should be knowing. Okay. 3 examples are given. Now, yes, I was talking about placental mammals and Australian mammals. So you see, this is one evolved from the marsupial mole. Similarly, you have a mole, placental mole over here. Okay, this is numbat, that is anteater, that is from Australian marsupial. Over here also you have anteater coming from placental mammals, because as I said, they were forced to have similar type of appearance. Why? Because they are there in the same habitat. That's why. So mouse was here, marsupial mouse was here, lemur is there, spotted cuscus is here, flying squirrel is over here, flying phalanger is over here. So just different names and a little bit of difference. Obviously structurally they are very much different. Okay, but function is same. Okay, now over here talking about the beaks. So as I said, there are different beaks over here that was found in the finches. But again, the structure, rest of the structure is all same. Okay. Now, my dear children, have you already registered for KCET Abhyas test series? If you have not, then it's high time to do so. When will you practice test series, my dear children? When are you going to practice questions? So, as you know, the exams are quite nearing, so we have to be prepared for that. We have to practice lots of questions, and we are here to provide you that in our test series. It is available for ₹1499. I'll recommend you to take it. Now, if you are thinking that test series is not enough, my concepts are not really strong, I need a crash course. So, we are here with the crash course as well, that is Lakshya KCET crash course, but there's a catch, you have to come to Bangalore. We can provide you hostel facility and everything. It's a 21-day course. You can utilize maximum of this and get into the top colleges of Karnataka. To enroll, you can just call, or if you want to check for some details also, you can do an inquiry call in this particular number. And if you want to have more information about both Abhyas and KCET, Abhyas and Lakshya, my dear children, you can click on the link in the description box as well. Please remember one very important thing, that is Abhyas is completely online. Okay, it is completely online. So it is easy for people who cannot come to Bangalore. Now, we have certain theories of evolution. Okay, some people say that this is how evolution happened, and things like that. So Darwin, he gave two concepts. He had two concepts. One is branching descent and the other one is natural selection. According to branching descent, he said that new species arise from a common ancestor. That is how branching descent means. Such as we saw, right, marsupials and placental mammals. And natural selection is basically when nature selects organism best suited for the environment. Okay, organisms comes like this, but it's the nature who will be selecting what is the best organism over here, which is able to survive. Okay, now influence was there. Influence of Thomas Malthus was there on Darwin. Now, Thomas Malthus was another person who was also working on all this thing. And what was his observation? He said that human population grow exponentially while resources grow arithmetically. That is, population would grow like this. But the resources which are there, it is not going to grow like this. There will be some limitations up here, my dear children. And because the resources are limited, what will happen? We will be competing for that resources. This is what he found out. So, he said, population, any organism's population is going to shoot up, but the resources are not going to go like that. That is why there will be for sure some competition. Now, Darwin said, yes, you are right. There will be competition, and not all organisms can succeed in the competition. Only the ones that have very good inheritance over there, such they have favorable traits, they will be the ones that would be surviving. they will be the one who will be surviving, and this is what natural selection is. This is what natural selection is. You get it? So Darwin applied his idea to the nature and said that not all organisms can survive because not all organisms have the variations. He said the term variation is there. We have some differences. So only those with favorable traits or favorable variations, my dear children, they were able to survive, they were able to reproduce and things like that. So Malthus was the one who gave the initial basic idea, and they get influenced with it. But then came Lamarck. Okay, Lamarck was also there. Okay, Lamarck was also there, and he said his theory is disapproved though, but he said something, that is he proposed the use and disuse of organs theory. That means if an organ is not much used, it would not be there. Okay, it just won't be there, it will be just eliminated. If it is there, probably let's say there can be evolution happening around it. For example, giraffe, they developed long necks. Why? Because initially it was thought that giraffe had short necks, and it's because the giraffe was doing like this, because the food was at higher level, the giraffe did like this, it used it initially, that is why it got big. That is what Lamarck said. So it was rejected, as it was totally proved that acquired traits are not inherited. What do you mean by acquired trait? Something that we acquire during the lifetime is not something that we inherit. That is, for example, this giraffe definitely might have did like this. If you think like this, giraffe might have did like this and might have got its neck long. What about its children? They do not have it. They do not have long neck. Then how can you prove this? Basically, then I'll say that this is an acquired trait and it cannot be inherited. So this became totally wrong, my dear children. Okay, that was Lamarck's theory. But then came someone who gave a proper idea of certain things, and that was Hugo de Vries. That was what? Hugo de Vries. He gave down the mutation theory. He said that basically, Charles Darwin said that there are small gradual changes that happens over a long time. That's how evolution happens. Okay, so giraffe developed long necks slowly as those with slightly longer necks survived better and passed their traits. Okay, so he found that yes, giraffe might have developed long necks when at least some of them who had long necks, they survived, they reproduced and things like that. So it was a very slow process. But Hugo de Vries said there are large sudden changes that is happening, and these large sudden changes are known as mutations, and this leads to what? New species. So a flower plant suddenly mutates and produces a new species in one step. This is saltation. This process of producing new species in one step is known as saltation. Please, just for you to remember that. So this was mutation theory, and it was kind of approved. Yes, in our, it's not like always there is need for long, or let's say time for evolution to happen, my dear children. Yes, long evolution happens in long time, nature selects it. This is correct, but this is also correct. So now we have a mix of all this thing running around in our head. Okay, all of this thing is being approved. Natural selection is also one thing, mutation theory is also there. So probably we can just mix and say that yes, mutations might have happened, which is why variation happened. Now the variation which was better adaptable was naturally selected. Easy. So now it's totally mixed. Okay, works? Cool. Now there is something that is known as Hardy-Weinberg's principle. What did Hardy-Weinberg say? That is, the allelic frequency in a population remains constant from generation to generation unless evolutionary forces acts on them. So basically, if I say that this is a population and there is so many people with capital T allele and there are so less people with small t allele. So according to Hardy-Weinberg's principle, the frequency of this allele and the frequency of this allele is going to remain constant from generation to generation. That is, from me to my babies, from their babies and everything. Is it true? Can it remain the same? Can it remain the same? What do you think? So the gene pool, that is total alleles and alleles, remain unchanged under stable condition. That is what he said. And he said that, okay, suppose that frequency of the dominant allele is denoted by P. P is frequency of dominant allele and Q is the frequency of the recessive allele. Okay, and what does P square means? P square means capital T and Q square means small t. Okay, so frequency of organisms that has a genotype like this is P square. Frequency of organism that has a genotype like this is Q square. What about capital T small t? This will be PQ. Frequency of organism having this will be PQ, but it's not PQ, it's 2PQ. How? I'll tell you. So the whole formula is being put up in a binomial equation which is like this: p plus q whole square is equals to 1. That means it is also always going to be constant. That is what he meant. Now when you expand this, a plus b whole square, so p square plus 2pq plus q square. So here p square represent capital T, q square represent the recessive alleles, homozygous recessive condition, and 2pq represents what? Heterozygous condition, which is over here. Do you get it? Do you get it? Fine. Okay. So this is the thing. But as I said, can we actually approve this? Do you think it is actually correct? No, it is not correct. The frequency of alleles will keep on changing. What if some tall people came in this particular population? Then what will happen? There will be more capital T. There will be more capital T up over here. If the homozygous ones came over here, the frequency is going to change. So what do you call this process as? This is known as gene flow. This is known as gene flow or gene migration. So movement of individuals into or out, or for example, the tall people which were here, they moved out. Again, the frequency is going to change. So again, this is an example of gene flow or gene migration. Movement of individuals into or out of a population changes the allelic frequency. That is one thing that affects factor that affects the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Very important. Okay, the factors, you will be asked the name of the factors. There are 5 of them. So one is gene migration or gene flow. Next is genetic drift, which is basically random changes that is going to happen in the allelic frequency. For example, I always give the example. Okay, so okay, here only this thing. Suppose some earthquake came, but somehow it's the tall people who died randomly. It was the tall people who died. What will happen? Again, the frequency is going to change up over here. Here, the small t will be the one that will be more in number. Again, the frequency has changed. So this is an example of genetic drift. It is a random change in the allelic frequency by chance. Now, Founder's effect, when a small population drifts away and forms a new species, is known as Founder's effect. So from a group of population, for example, some of them moved out or things like that happened. Okay, now they are forming a new species up there. It is known as what? Founder's effect. Now, the third thing that plays a major role is mutation. So again, mutation can happen in a population which was like this, my dear children. Again, some mutation can happen and they can give rise to something else also. From capital T, from tall and what say dwarf, there can be medium organism also because of some mutation that is happening over here, my dear children. You get it? So mutation can also lead to allelic frequency change. Now, genetic recombination. What do you mean by genetic recombination? The chromosomes which are there, they can combine differently and give rise to something else. So there can be mixing of genes during gamete formation that can lead to variations, my dear children. Again, the frequency is going to change. Then there is natural selection. For example, again, the tall ones. Okay, just a second. The dwarf ones which are there, they might be selected. The tall ones are not selected. Probably dwarf ones selected because they are able to hide, so they survived. So that is nature's way of selecting. You get it? That is nature's way of selecting. So natural selection is also one thing. In natural selection, okay, under natural selection, there are 3 things that you should be knowing. There is stabilizing selection, there is directional selection, and there is disruptive selection. Again, this picture can be asked you might be asked that which type of selection is happening over here. First thing, please remember the names of all these things. Okay, now under this, I am going to explain you this. So over here, suppose tall and dwarf, both of them are selected. So over here, 2 peaks, 2 extremes are selected. I will call this as disruptive selection. So more individuals having both the extreme traits are getting what? Selected over here in disruptive selection. Now, this is in the middle, okay. So here, the organism that has the average trait, they are going to get selected. Suppose in tall and dwarf, the medium ones are getting selected over here. So this is stabilizing selection. Now, suppose only dwarf organisms are selected. So towards one extreme it is going. So this is what? Directional selection. It is going towards one direction. So more individuals shift towards one extreme. They will be having one particular character. Okay, when they have both, it is disruptive. When they have only one, it is directional. When it is stabilized in the middle, okay, in the average trait, when it is considered, it is what? Stabilizing selection which is there. So these are things that you should know. Got it? And p plus q whole square is equals to 1. This is a binomial expansion of this particular equation. Now, you might be given p and you might be asked to find q. So, how do you find it? You just do this. P plus q is equal to 1, you have to replace. You have to replace what? P over here and then try to find what is q. Easy. I will do certain questions over here. If I can, I will put up certain questions and I will make you do that, okay, separately. Works? So this is Hardy-Weinberg's principle, my dear children, and these are the factors and these are the graphs that you should definitely know. Moving ahead, let's talk about evolution of organisms. We are towards the end of the chapter. So how did organisms basically they evolve? So my dear children, first thing that you should know is, if you talk about animals, okay, if you talk about animals, we had non-chordates and we have chordata. Okay, non-chordates are the one that does not have notochord. That does not have notochord. For example, Porifera, Cnidaria, Ctenophora, Platyhelminthes, Ascanthelminthes, Annelids and worms. Okay, Arthropod as in insects. There are insects coming under this. Okay, Mollusca as in when you talk about octopus and everything, they come under Mollusca. Echinodermata, that is starfish and all, comes under this. Hemichordata, that comes separately. Okay, here you will be having your jellyfish and stuff like that, and sponges, all of this. They do not have notochord, my dear children, which is why they are known as non-chordates. Okay, now you have chordates as well. You have chordates as well. In that you have Urochordata, Cephalochordata and Vertebrata. Urochordata is the one that has notochord, but only in the larval stage, and that too in the tail. That too in the tail region, my dear children. Now Cephalochordata are the one that has notochord all throughout its life. All throughout its life. Entire body it's there. Okay. Now Vertebrata is where the notochord has been replaced by vertebral column. Has been replaced by vertebral column. So I will call this is vertebrata, and all of them who does not have a vertebral column, I will just call all of it as what? Invertebrates. They are invertebrates. Why I am explaining you all this? When I am going to say that this is how it came, invertebrates came and then vertebrates came, you should know what I am talking about. Okay, so invertebrates are all these things and these are the vertebrates. Now if you talk about vertebrate, who come under that, ma'am? Who come under that? Basically I am going to talk about that. So invertebrates, first you have Agnatha and then you have Gnathostomata. I have a picture of this here. So under Agnatha comes jawless organisms. Jawless organisms, here they do not have jaw. If you see, they do not have jaw. The teeth are just randomly arranged up over here. They are agnathans. Now in vertebrates you have Gnathostomata as well, where the first thing that you have is Pisces, that means fishes. So you have fishes under vertebrates, yeah. In fishes you have cartilaginous fishes whose skeleton is made up of cartilage. Osteichthyes as in the fishes that have their endoskeleton made up of bones. Their endoskeleton which is made up of bones. Okay. Now over here fishes have been said that they came first. In the cave of Gnathostomata, these are the guys who came first. Then from them came what? Tetrapodas, the ones that had 4 limbs over here. Okay, so over here the 4 limbs can be, for example in the case of birds, it can be made to wings and all. That is completely different, but they have thing. Okay, now tetrapoda, the first thing is amphibians. So we believe that basically from fishes, first thing that came in were amphibians. From amphibians came reptile, my dear children. From reptiles you got birds and also mammals. Okay, you got birds and also mammals. So we saw that there were invertebrates over here. There is vertebrate over here, my dear children. So insect and all comes under invertebrates and everything. Then came vertebrate. In vertebrate we have agnathans which do not have jaw. Then we have what? Gnathostomata, where Pisces is the one thing. Okay, here we are talking about fishes. From fishes probably amphibians might have come. From amphibians reptiles. From reptiles apes and the mammals. Now we are going to see the flow. So 2 billion years ago, what? 2 billion years ago or 2000 million years ago, the first prokaryotic cell came through. Prokaryotic cell as in the cell does not have any membrane bound cell organelles. Okay, so all our organelles generally our organelles have membranes that are surrounding them. So prokaryotes are the one that do not have membrane bound cell organelles. They do not have a nucleus as well. Their genetic material is just floating around there. So 2 billion years ago the first prokaryotic cell came. From them eukaryotic cell came. Now this eukaryotic cell which is there, it came together to form what? All the cells came together to form multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms. And it was believed that 500 million years ago, see that is 2 billion years ago first prokaryote came. Now 500 million years ago who came? Invertebrates came, as in I am talking about Echinodermata, fishes, sorry not fishes, Echinodermata, Mollusca, Annelida, Arthropoda, all these things my dear children which we studied. Okay, now 500 million years ago invertebrates came. Then who came my dear children? Almost around 350 million years ago jawless fishes came. Jawless fishes as in Agnatha, I am talking about vertebrata. And then slowly I found Osteichthyes also, the bony fishes. Okay, from probably bony fishes might have been seen, and those were we found again 350 million years ago. So they have evolved like that. So you in the vertebrata you got Agnatha and Gnathostomata, and Gnathostomata you get Osteichthyes. Now my dear children, I want you to remember one very important thing. Now in this bony fishes there was a fish whose name was lobfin, or basically coelacanth, or what? Coelacanth. So it was thought to be extinct, but you know what, this lobfins had very tough fins, with which it could walk around the ground as well. So this was a fish, but it could actually walk around the land as well. So we believe that this is kind of a link between what the fishes and the amphibians. So lobfins are the one, listen to me carefully, this is a very important question. So lobfins are the ones which are believed to be the ancestors of modern day frogs and salamanders and everything, that is the amphibians over here. The coelacanth, lobfin, remember this particular name. Okay, now what happened? From the amphibians, we believe that the reptiles have come. Now in the same way, if we talk about plants, my dear children, some seaweeds and vascular plants. As in vascular plants, what do you mean by vascular plants? The one that has the vascular bundle, xylem and phloem and everything. So they also evolved around 320 million years ago. So we are talking about animals over here, but we have to talk about plants also, right? So 2 billion years ago, first prokaryotic organism. 500 million years ago, we got the invertebrates. 350 million years ago, we got the vertebrata, first in jawless fish, and also Osteichthyes, that is bony fishes, my dear children. Okay, bony fishes. Now this jawless fish comes under Agnatha. This fish, don't get confused with that. Okay, they come under Agnatha, and Osteichthyes is the one that comes under Gnathostomata piscis, fishes, actual fishes. Okay, now over here you got lobfins. The lobfins might have been the one that evolved into the amphibians. From the amphibians you got the reptiles. Okay, now 320 million years ago, what was happening? Some seaweeds and vascular plants were also developing. Now let's go to the next thing. Okay, so we were here. From the reptiles, we believe that reptile dominated from 265 million years. Okay, we believe that reptiles basically dominated from 265 million years ago. That is quite a big thing. Now, Ichthyosaurus moved back to water. So there was a reptile which basically moved back to water, which is why we believe that there are certain reptiles which can stay in water as well. Probably this is how we got those reptiles. For example, certain snakes are there that can live in water. Probably this is how they evolved. Around 200 million years ago, we observed that. And the largest dinosaur was also there, my dear, that is Tyrannosaurus rex, which is 20 feet in height. The name of this is given, please remember it, Tyrannosaurus rex, 20 feet in height it was there. Now 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs which is there, they disappeared. They what? Disappeared. Okay, got it? Fine. So from reptiles which dominated for almost around 265 years, after 65 years what happened? 65 million years ago, basically they disappeared. Now I want to tell you one thing. From reptiles we get aves and we get mammals. And the first primitive mammal which was there, we say shrew is the collecting name. So we had shrews, my dear children, and shrews were having features like reptiles and also mammals. So we believe that basically the shrews which gave rise to what? The mammals that were there, or the primitive mammals which were there, they were like shrews. Either way you can remember it. Just like how you have a combination over here between fishes and amphibians, similarly between reptiles and mammals you have shrews. Now, this is the condition. So, if you talk about reptile evolution, my dear children, so we have certain periods. Do you know? We have certain periods over here. So, as in Paleozoic era, okay, Mesozoic era and Cenozoic era. So first thing is Paleozoic era, which is your Permian and Carboniferous comes under Paleozoic era. This is Cretaceous, Jurassic and Triassic comes under Mesozoic era. Okay, and Quaternary and Tertiary comes under Cenozoic era. So there are certain eras. Okay, now what happened was there were early reptiles which is now believed to be extinct. It is 350 million years ago that these guys were seen. Okay, now what happened is that from them sauropsids and synapsids came. Sauropsids and synapsids came. So I'll just zoom this in and I'll show you the names. Sauropsids and synapsids. Now sauropsids were the ones that gave rise to turtles, okay, the modern reptiles, lizards and snakes and tuatara and everything. Okay, Now, this sauropsid itself is the one that gave rise to thecodonts, my dear children. So, until now, the organisms which were there, okay, until now the organisms which were there, they did not have the jaws which were having thecodont dentition. What do you mean by thecodont dentition? So, I'll tell you what was generally there. So, generally they had jaw and the teeth were just above it. Okay, when you talk about thecodont dentition, they have small gaps like this, socket like this, just like how we have charging sockets. Similarly, they have sockets and then the socket, what do we have? We have the teeth, my dear children. So, thecodont dentition was seen over here. So, you should be knowing that as well. So, crocodiles and everything comes under thecodont. So, over here they are reptiles, but they have thecodont dentition. But when you talk about turtles, when you talk about lizards, snakes and tortoises, they do not have thecodont dentition. Okay. Now, from them came what? The dinosaurs. Now, from them came what? The dinosaurs. So, it's basically the sauropsids from which you got the dinosaurs. And when did they come? See to this. So, almost over here, okay, in the start of the Mesozoic era. So, Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous is basically known as Mesozoic era, my dear children, right. Now, almost in the start of the Mesozoic era, you got the dinosaurs, and almost at the end of the Mesozoic era, okay, that is Cretaceous period, at the end of it, my dear children, the dinosaurs which were there, they got extinct as well. Cool. Now see, from this thing only you got the birds also. You got the birds, that is from sauropsis only you got the birds as well. So, you got the dinosaur, you got the reptiles, other reptiles, you got the dinosaur, it got extinct, but then you got the birds as well. When you talk about synapsid, from synapsid you got Pelycosaurus, which is now extinct, my dear children. Then you got therapsids. And therapsids, I tell you, all these organisms that I have discussed until now, they are cold-blooded organisms. They do not have the ability to maintain a constant body temperature. They do not have that ability, but now slowly they started developing this ability of maintaining a constant body temperature just like human beings. So these are the things. Therapsids are the ones that basically in future gave rise to what? Mammals. And mammals, we are all what? Warm-blooded organisms. We all are warm-blooded organisms. Okay, works. So this is something that we should know. Okay, so please remember Mesozoic era, Paleozoic era, Cenozoic era. In Mesozoic era, the dinosaurs were there, and after that they got dead also. Now, talking about plants. So, in plants, my dear children, you have certain division, that is Thallophyta, which basically includes what? Algae. Which includes just algae. Now, this algae is totally different from what you learn in kingdom, Protista. That is totally different. This algae is totally different. Now, they have the ability to photosynthesize and everything, okay. So, over here, the algae which is there, it does not have anything which looks like a plant, but still it is considered to be a plant. Now, bryophytes came from Thallophyta, my dear children. Bryophytes came from thallophytes. And what was there about bryophytes? They said that at least I have root-like, stem-like and leaf-like features. You do not have anything. So these are the guys which had the root-like, stem-like and everything feature, but they didn't have the vascular system. No vascular system. That means no xylem and phloem was still being observed in them, in bryophytes. Then from them came pteridophytes. Now, pteridophytes were the first organisms to have what? Vascular system. They had the xylem and the phloem. Okay, so here you found that vascular system was developed. Now, what happened to pteridophytes? From pteridophytes, basically you got the other set of organisms, which is gymnosperms. Gymnosperms were the ones that had naked seeds. So they didn't form flowers and all. Okay, they didn't form flowers, so seeds were naked. So we say gymnosperms are there. From gymnosperms, you got angiosperms, that is the flowering plants, where the seeds are being covered by the flowers, my dear children. So this is the thing that is there. Now we'll see how we can put it over here. So over there we just studied about Permian and Carboniferous, which is coming under Paleozoic. But please remember there are so many other things. They have mentioned Devonian and Silurian as well. So Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, Permian, all of it coming under Paleozoic era. Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous comes under Mesozoic era. Tertiary and Quaternary comes under Cenozoic era. Now, see the condition that is happening over here. So we had chlorophyte ancestor, that means we are talking about thallophytes. Okay, so we had chlorophyte ancestors, my dear children, and from them and from them you got tracheophyte ancestors. Tracheophytes name term comes from tracheids, and tracheids is a part of vascular system. And who are the organisms that had the vascular system, my dear children? It was pteridophytes that had the vascular system. So basically from them you got them. But where are the bryophytes? Can we skip the bryophytes? No. So over here you see a line. This line basically indicates there were bryophytes. In which era? Cenozoic era. In this era you found the bryophytes were there. Now when you go ahead, from tracheophytes you got the Rhynia type plants. The Rhynia, please remember the name. You got the Rhynia type plants. All means basically just talking about pteridophytes only. So pteridophytes are basically developing over here, and in this development they're forming different things. So Zoosterophyllum and arborescent lycopods, herbaceous lycopods, everything is being formed over here, my dear children. Then you got Xylophyton. Okay, from Rhynia type plants you got Xylophyton, and the Xylophyton is believed to be the one that finally gave rise to a lot of the modern day pteridophytes that we have, which is horsetails, that is synopsid, and also ferns. So if you see, it is during Mesozoic era and especially Jurassic and Cretaceous where the ferns and the spinozid, that is the modern day pteridophytes, have been developing. Now pteridophyte thing is done. After that, if you see this, ginkgos, conifers, knit-tails and cycads, they all are what, my dear children? They all are the next category, that is what? Gymnosperms. Again, where are they developing? Mostly they are developing in Mesozoic era. So ginkgos, conifers, knit-tails and cycads, they all are gymnosperms which are kind of developing really good in the Mesozoic era. Now here you can see that from the Xylophyton only you got progymnosperms, that is, and also seed ferns, and seed ferns were the one that gave rise to cycads, and also they were the one that gave rise to angiosperms. That is the next thing. After gymnosperm you got angiosperms. So from here only you got this thing. From here you got cycads and everything. From here another branch which is there, you got angiosperms. In angiosperms you had monocotyledons and dicotyledons as well. So angiosperms mostly developed in Cenozoic era, but yeah, dicots developed in Mesozoic era, at the end of the Mesozoic era as well. So please remember the eras as well, over not for everything, at least for gymnosperm, at least for the modern day pteridophytes. I'll just repeat it once more. So you had chlorophyte, that is thallophytes. Okay, from them came tracheophytes, that is, you're talking about the pteridophytes over here, and in between you have the bryophytes which are forming in the in this particular era prominently. From here only it started off, and they are still there. Okay, that is what you mean. So now they were prominent. Now if you talk about tracheophytes, from them came Rhynia type plants, and in between that again you got herbaceous lycopods and arborescent lycopods. Now over here you got Xylophyton from Rhynia type plants. Xylophyton gave rise to modern day pteridophytes, that is spinopsid and ferns, my dear children, and also gymnosperms like ginkgos or conifers or knit-tails and cycads, and also they were the one that gave rise to angiosperms later on. Got it? So please remember all this thing, that is, this era is really important. Okay. Now the last part of this chapter, that is origin and evolution of man. So this is very interesting. So 15 million years ago, okay, 15 million years ago, my dear children, you had Dryopithecus and you had Ramapithecus. Dryopithecus were more ape-like, okay, they were more ape-like. They walked on all the four limbs which were there. So they walked like this. Okay, now talking about Ramapithecus, Rama, the name is there, right? So they were more man-like and could stand more erect, not completely erect. Okay, so Dryopithecus was totally ape-like, Ramapithecus was more man-like, my dear children, and it happened almost around 15 million years ago. Now, 3 to 4 million years ago, they said that early hominids were found in East Africa, and they walked kind of upright. They walked like this. Fossil evidences show that they are from Ethiopia and Tanzania, that is parts of Africa, my dear children. Height was around 4 feet, and they adapted to bipedal locomotion. Bipedal as in just need two legs or limbs for what? Locomotion. So this was 3 to 4 million years ago, where early hominids were found. Now 2 million years ago, Australopithecines, or basically Australopithecines, were found that lived in East African grassland only. Okay, they used stone weapons, my dear children. They used stone weapons for hunting, and their main diet were fruits, not primarily meat eaters. They were not meat eaters, please remember. So this was happening 2 2 million years ago. So you might be asked to match the following. So you should know 2 million years ago you got Australopithecines, okay, and 15 million years ago you got these guys. 3 to 4 million years ago you got early hominids. Early hominids are not mainly involved, it's said like together only. Okay, so it is 2 million years ago, please remember that, because in the book it is clearly given. Now you got Homo habilis. Homo habilis, they have not mentioned the year and all, okay. So it is the first true human-like hominid that they found. And the brain size is also mentioned, that is 650 to 800 cc. That means the cranial capacity is what? 650 to 800. Now they are also going to use the same simple tools which are there, and they also didn't eat meat. They were not meat eaters, they were all fruit eaters, my dear children. So in a book, there is no clear differentiation given between Australopithecines and Homo habilis, but please understand, they came first, and from them, okay, at least some fossils, okay, some fossils resemble basically having human-like, complete human-like hominid, and those were Homo habilis. Some fossils among them only, during that particular era only, you found this thing as well. And the brain size was 650 to 800, cranial capacity, that is, please remember that, that can also be asked in match the following. They also didn't eat meat. Now from Homo habilis came 1.5 million years ago. So we stopped in 2 million years ago where Australopithecines and Homo habilis is being mentioned. Now we go ahead with 1.5 million years ago where Homo erectus was seen. Here the brain size increased, its capacities is 900 cc. It is what? 900 cc. So until now it was 650 to 800 cc. Now it has went up to 900 cc. They used fire and they crafted better tools as well. They used what? Fire, my dear children, and they had better tools, and their diet included meat. From now on they started eating what? Meat. And the fossils of them were found in Java, Indonesia, and that is in 1891 as well. So that is basically something different. So they kind of moved out to different locations as well. I'm talking about Homo erectus. They started eating meat, and please remember 900 cc is their cranial capacity. Now 1 lakh to 40 years ago, we are coming close, right? 40 years ago we have Neanderthals or Neanderthensis, those type of organisms, or basically man only. Over here they had a brain capacity of 1400 cc. 1400 cc, that means 1400 cc. That is more than actually modern humans that we are there. Okay, they lived in caves and used animal hides for protection. So they understand that they have to protect their body, and they started burial of their dead as well. Now they were found in Europe and Central Asia. So it is believed that from Africa some organisms went up to Europe and Central Asia, and they kind of developed there. The brain capacity was 1400 cc. They lived in caves, they started protecting their body, and they started burying their dead as well. It was almost around 1 lakh to 40 years ago. Now within the same period, almost between 75,000 to 10,000 years ago, Homo sapiens came, that is us, the modern humans. We originated in Africa itself and then migrated basically worldwide. So some organisms stayed up back there only, some organisms moved to different area, that is Europe and Central Asia. That's how these organisms came. Okay, now the one who stayed there, they developed as modern human beings in the year in what year zone? That is 75,000 to 10,000 years. So while they were developing still at this point in time. Now we had a common thing. So developed a language, culture and social structure, adapted to various climates and the environment, that is modern Homo sapiens. So I'll just repeat once more. So over here we have 15 million years ago Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus. Ramapithecus were more man-like, so from them only we might have evolved. 3 to 4 million years ago you got the first early hominids, about which not much explanation is given, but it is said that we were found in Ethiopia and Tanzania, and the height was 4 feet and they were bipedal. 2 million years ago, strictly given, Australopithecines were seen. They were found in East African grasslands. They used stone weapons. They didn't have meat. Okay, and Homo habilis also were found during that particular time only. Some fossils were different. Okay, so we were considering them to be Homo habilis, the first true human-like hominid. And here the cranial capacity is being mentioned, that is 650 to 800 cc. From here on it's going to increase. They use simple tools. They didn't eat meat. Again, from Homo erectus, this is a time where they started eating meat and their cranial capacity increased to 900 cc. They crafted better tools as well. This is 1.5 million years ago. Then 1 lakh to 40 years ago, you got Neanderthal man, where the brain capacity increased way too much, 1400 cc, which is more than actually the modern humans, and they actually were found in Europe and Central Asia. They practiced burial of the dead and they also used hide for protection. Now 75,000 to 10,000 years ago you got Homo sapiens, okay, and they originated in Africa only. And please remember, Homo erectus is also known as Java men because their fossils were found in Java as well. Okay, and with this yes, no, we didn't complete. There is one more thing. So, prehistoric human development. So, cave art was developed around 18,000 years ago, my dear children. Prehistoric humans created cave paintings, example like Bhimteka rock shelters in Madhya Pradesh and things like that. Okay, so they started having cave paintings as well. And agriculture started around 10,000 years ago. Farming began leading to permanent settlements, and human civilization has also happened. So cave art 18,000 years ago. Example is Bhimteka rock shelter that is there in Bhimbetka rock shelters in Madhya Pradesh, and then agriculture was found in 10,000 years ago, and then human civilization happened. Okay, urbanization also started happening. And with this, we are completing the chapter that is evolution. So yes, I know that it might still feel that it's distorted here and there, no connection is there, but yes, this is how in NCERT also it is given. I tried my maximum to club things up and explain to you. I hope I was successful in at least bit levels. Okay, but children, please feel really free to ask your doubts to me in the comments section. I always say that I am giving more priority to that now. Please keep on asking me doubts. It will be really helpful for you if you get it cleared. Yeah, and I wish you all the best. You are going to ace the KCET examination. Bye bye, take care.